Hey, what's up guys? Welcome back to the channel. On today's episode, we got something new and exciting for you today. We're going to talk about this Flex 24-volt brushless inline circular saw. We're going to go over this saw top to bottom, go over its specs and all the fun stuff and put it on our test track. Stick with us. Alright guys, so this right here is Flex's 24-volt brushless inline 6.5 inch circular saw. The model number on this is FX2131a. Okay, if you buy it as a kit, it's -1C, and if you buy it as a kit, it comes with a 5 amp hour battery and a charger. And whether you buy it as a tool only or a kit, it comes with this Flex 6.5 inch 24 tooth active speed tooth design, anti-stick coating, thin curved blade. Okay, so you're gonna get this blade no matter how you buy it. Okay, so let's go ahead and talk about an inline circular saw. What is that? Okay, so if you look at it like this, right, the blade is in line with the motor, and the motor is also in line with the handle and the battery. Everything is in one line, okay? So usually on a circular saw, you'll kind of see in a worm drive style, so it's more closer to inline, right? Because it's kind of going this way and you have a worm gear driving a real worm drive saw, and it kind of, you know, has that worm gear and kind of spins the blade this way. But in worm drive style saws, usually see a direct drive or some type of other type drive, which the motor is actually right here on the back, kind of driving this arbor pretty much directly, okay? So because this blade, or because the blade is in line with the motor and the motor's back here, in order to drive the arbor, right, there is a belt drive system in here, okay? So what is the benefit of an inline circular saw, okay? So there's two main benefits. So if you look at it this way, right, the footprint or shoe or whatever you want to call it, it's got a really slim profile, okay? That's one part. The other big benefit is because now this arbor is actually is not blocked by the motor in the back. It's actually to drop closer to the shoe, allowing you to get more blade efficiency or depth out of the blade, okay? So this 6.5 inch blade can actually match, if not surpass, 7.25 inch tooth blades, okay? So we're gonna dig into some of that stuff later. So let's go take a look at the marketing hype, and then we'll bring you in closer and take a better look at it. This first of its kind inline saw design provides a total balance and improved visibility with a clear view on both sides of the cut. The Flex 24-volt 6.5 inch inline circular saw rips through 3.5 material or 3x material in one pass, has a built-in LED light for superior precision and accuracy. It also includes the Flex Advantage, which means it's unmatched 24-volt power, extended runtime, fast charging, and it has protected by a 5-year warranty. If you buy the tool right now and register before the end of 2021, you'll get what they call the Founder's Warranty, which is pretty much a limited lifetime warranty, okay? Other specs: it has an LED light, we already covered that. It uses a 6.5 inch blade, which is about 165 millimeters, has a no load speed of 5,500 RPM, have a bevel capacity up to 47 degrees. Arbor size is 5/8. For those millimeter people, that's 16 millimeters. Has a cut capacity at 90 degrees, which is 2 9/16. We're gonna come back to that in a second. For those millimeter people, that's 65 millimeters. And a cut capacity at 45 degrees is 1 9/16, which comes out to about 40 millimeters, okay? The tool weight is 7.1 pounds, AKA right around 3.2 kilograms, okay? So let's go ahead and take a look at the marketing hype as we usually do on most of these Flex videos. So Flex uses a 24-volt system, okay? So they kind of claim the Flex Advantage is 20% more power, 25% longer runtime, and faster charging to kind of deal with the heat in a special way using Thermatech technology. But let's go ahead and talk about 20% more power, okay? So in a typical 18-volt tool, aka 20-volt max, it uses pretty much 5 cells in series. Whether it's 18,650 cells or 21,700 series cells, it's 5 cells in series. It kind of gives it that 18 to 20-volt max power, okay? So because this is a 24-volt system, it actually has 6 cells in series, so that's how they claim 20% more power. So don't fall all into that marketing hype or whatnot. We're gonna go take a look at the performance of the tool later in the video, so stay tuned for that. Okay, So let's bring you in closer and take a better look at it. So this right here is the business part of the saw, okay? And one of the first things you'll notice is, look how close that arbor is to the shoe or to the cutting material, whatnot, right? So like I said, this uses a 6.5-inch blade and has a 2 9/16 cutting capacity. So if you've been paying attention to most of the video and stuff that we've been shooting on our channel, there is only one other saw that we've tested that has 2 9/16 cutting depth capacity that uses a 7.25-inch blade, right? That one is the Makita XSR01. That's the rear handle style saw, right? The 18-volt X2 36-volt type system. That one does 2 9/16. Let's say the flex volt worm draft style one is 2 7/16, and the Milwaukee rear handle and the top handle sidewinder style, let's say the 2732 and the 2830, those both max out at 2.5 of an inch, okay? There is a saw that will cut a little bit more, right? That's the Makita XGT 10.25-inch blade saw, right? So that one is obviously going to be good. I think that one's like the GSR02, which will go 3 3/4, but that uses a 10.25-inch blade, so that's not really fair, right? So the point I'm trying to make here is this saw will cut deeper than pretty much almost any 7.25-inch circular saw currently on the market, I believe, right now. So that's interesting to point out with using a 6.5-inch blade, and that's where you get the real benefit of that inline belt-driven circular saw. Okay, so let's just keep that in mind. This has a pretty standard like blade guard system. It does get caught up a lot, especially if you're cutting stacked OSB, right? And if you're cutting anything with, let's say, tongue and groove type systems, right, it'll get caught up a lot. So I had this end up taping this before I started doing the test or whatnot, but we'll look at that later. Just watch the videos. It's got a pretty slim profile right here. This is a magnesium shoe and base, nothing too interesting going on. Motors right here. Obviously it's got the branding and stuff like that, but no real frills going on here. There is one thing I will try to point out on this a little bit later, is I believe that this arbor, I'm not sure if it's the quality or whatnot, or the QC control on this, but I do think the arbor is just literally a hair too tiny, because if you look at the blade, the Diablo blade we installed, I'll try to show up a picture of it or a small video of it, there's a little bit of wiggle room, more than you see on almost any circular saw. And I do want to point that out, mainly because if you don't get the blade centered perfectly, it will wiggle, wobble, and all kinds of fun stuff could happen and cause a lot of vibrations or whatnot. It's not huge in terms of the amount of wiggle room there is, but there is still a little bit more than I've pretty much seen on most other saws, so I did want to point that out. On the back side here, literally nothing too interesting. This is where you put the battery. No frills there. Here is the back side. Okay, obviously this is where the blade or the belt system driven or belt drive system is, because obviously here's the motor and arbor's going to be over here, so there's a belt in there. It is not a user serviceable belt by any means, so don't try to open it up and do all that fun stuff. This is where the Allen wrench is for if you were to change the system out, right? So the interesting thing about this is you would think that there would be some kind of like bevel or some kind of lip or something for this Allen key to not fall out on, but it's literally, it just goes in there, right? There's literally nothing holding it from falling out. So I do think over a long period of time it could get loose and fall out, but who knows what's going on there, okay? While we're here, we'll go ahead and say this is where the depth lever is, depth adjustment lever. And if you're looking at the saw, you're thinking, wow, there's really no guide for that. Like there's no markings or any of that, right? But you would be wrong, mainly because it's there. You just don't see it right now because it's down, right? So if you lift the saw up, right, here is the depth guide markers, right? It's a really nice looking or working system, mainly because it's a black, it's a white on black, right? It's got the white numbers or markers on this black background, which actually shows up really nice. Whether or not you use it or not, it's a different story, because I almost never use it. I just kind of put the thing on there and try to figure out, like, you know, what blade's actually going to cut. So anyways, it is nice. Did want to point that out. While we're on this side, you can obviously take a look at how wide the shoe is, right? So because it's an inline saw, it's actually pretty long, okay? And we'll go ahead and compare that a little bit later, but it is longer than what I would compare to, let's say, the Makita subcompact saw, right? But that one's not an inline saw, but they're kind of in like the compact class, right? So we'll go ahead and take a look at that later. So that's what's really going on here. This is the middle system. I don't really see too many issues with that. Moving around to the front, this is the bevel system, okay? And this saw bevels up to 47 degrees, and it has no bevel stops or positive indents or whatever you want to call it. It's a lever system, not too much. It'll bevel all the way to 45, right? But in order to bevel past 45, you have to pull this lever back, and then it'll go back past 45 to 47. It will cut up to 47. A lot of times you'll see saws that cut like 53, 56 or whatnot, but I don't really see this being too much of a problem because myself personally don't really cut too much past that far anyway. So it's a pretty quick lock system. There's really nothing too interesting going on there, right? So while we're on the front here, we'll go ahead and take a look at the markers and the sight lines or whatnot, if you want to call it. It's all stamped in, just like the bevel adjustment is, right? So you don't really see any stickers and stuff like that wearing off. It's not like a ruler that's screwed in or whatnot, but it is literally just stamped in. Okay, so on the base or on the shoe, there is a fence for a rip guide system in here. Obviously, it does not include the wing bolt, as you would expect on most things. So that's interesting to note. Just keep that in mind. The other thing to point out on here, which I know everyone wants to know, is that it does include this dust port, okay? And this dust port is included, and there is a way to remove it if you really wanted to remove it and get it off, but I mean, not really see how, if anybody really wants to do that. I kind of had to build this up to fit it on our dust collection system or whatnot. But if you haven't seen it in the video already, I'll throw it up now. The dust chute or dust management actually works pretty well. When I get to the testing part of the videos, you probably won't see it working that well, mainly because we're just trying to get through the cut as fast as possible, okay? And I don't think most people who, you know, do good work are going to be trying to cut that fast because they're going to be cutting at a comfortable speed that, you know, generally, you know, comfortable way people work. So it does work pretty well if you are cutting standard speed or your natural working motion. It swivels all the way, so you can either shoot the dust out this way, forward or back, on the side or whatnot, but it is there, and that is nice that they included that, and it's not like it's gonna fall off or it doesn't look like it's gonna break anytime soon. Standard flex quality as you would think in most of their flex tools. So obviously there is a handle on the top here, and it does have a rafter hook. It is a single 2x lumber rafter hook. It's an on-off type system. There's no like different level of guide, and as you would expect, there is a safety switch that works on either way, left or right, and a trigger here, right? So there's literally nothing too frills going on with this, okay? There is an LED light right here that it'll come on like when you put the battery in and press the trigger and all that fun stuff, but that's what you really get with this saw, okay? All right, so let's go ahead and put this on the track and get some numbers. But before we do that, let's go ahead and talk about the track, right? So obviously we do a lot of that stuff, but in order to do the proper testing, as we do in pretty much our videos, we have to try to use the same blade. Unfortunately, they don't make a 6.5-inch blade. Avanti doesn't make a 6.5-inch blade, so we have to use Diablo blades. So like we did with the other subcompact saw, we use a Diablo 24-tooth framing blade, and that's exactly what we did here. So in order to change the blade, let's go ahead and talk about the spindle lock mechanism. On this saw, the spindle lock mechanism is right here, right? So you see this black little button lever looking thing? You just press that down, and then you change the blade. Pretty standard, nothing too different there. So I did want to point that out because we are using a Diablo blade versus an Avanti blade, but we try to keep everything the same. We are testing with a fully charged battery as we do in every test, and we run all the cuts, we average the numbers, and then we score numbers. So without too much further ado, let's go take a look at the numbers. All right, guys, I hope y'all caught those numbers because those numbers went by really fast, and you would not think a 6.5-inch blade compact type saw would go by that fast, but they did. So let's go ahead and do a recap. All right. So using a fully charged 8 amp hour battery and the Diablo blade on this saw, on the double stack performance test, first number comes in 4.43, second number 4.37, third number 4.34. You average the 3 runs, average comes out to 4.38. Okay, wow, that's actually pretty quick. The performance using the triple stack test, first run 7.26, second run 8.18, third run 8.03. You average those numbers out, the average comes out to 7.82. Wow, that's actually really quick. So in order to get the total performance number, we sum up the two averages, and the average total performance number for this saw, an 8 amp hour battery, comes out to 12.20. Wow, that's actually really quick, right? So that puts this saw right behind the Bosch Profactor GKS 18V25C, which had a score of like 12.07, and right in front of the two Milwaukee M18 fuel saws, the rear handle and the top handle, Sidewinder style 2732 and the 2830, using a 5 amp hour battery. Okay, so that's actually a quick saw. Okay. So we ran the same test using a 5 amp hour battery to try to figure out how power hungry this motor is, right? So if you look at it, it's not that huge, right? If you take the motor out, it looks like you can hold it within like 2 fingers, right? So it doesn't look like a huge motor, so I don't think it would be that much of a power difference, right? So let's go ahead and take a look at the numbers. So using the 5 amp hour battery, first run on the double stack test, 5.01, second run 5.02, third run 5.1. Average of those 3 runs 5.04. All right, performance on the triple stack test, first run 7.57, second run 8.00, third run 7.57. You average those 3 runs, comes out to 7.71. So total performance number using a 5 amp hour battery comes out to 12.76. Wow, so that puts this saw with a 5 amp hour battery right behind this saw with the 8 amp hour battery, right? 8 amp hour battery, 12.20, 5 amp hour battery, 12.76, right? So they're pretty much in like what, 14th or 15th place on the leaderboard, right? So, I mean, look at the motor. It doesn't look like it's gonna be super power hungry. So whether you use a 8 amp hour battery, 5 amp hour battery, not too much of a huge difference. Total performance number comes out about the same. 8 amp hour battery obviously provides just a little more power. So, or you get better numbers with that because it provides more power, okay? So, that's actually a great saw, or it's actually good numbers in terms of what you would think, right? Because this is more of a compact saw because it uses a 6.5-inch blade, right? And it's got a pretty slim profile, okay? So the other thing we have to compare, right, is in the compact stuff that we've done so far in the videos, right, is this subcompact Makita 18-volt brushless saw. This model number is XSH04. We've already covered this in the series. If you look at, I think it was like video episode 6 or whatnot in the series, you'll see this saw. So we ran this saw with a 5 amp hour battery and 2 amp hour battery, and currently it's in last place, right? Score of 22.45 and 25.95. It's pretty much in last place because it's, it's just not a super powerful saw. But also at the same time, this is the lightest saw. I can't remember the numbers exactly, but this with the battery is way lighter than I feel like just this saw by itself, even without a battery. So that's something to consider if you are going to pick out the saws. The other thing to consider is, look at it. This is a top handle saw with the blade on the right. This is a top handle saw with the blade on the left, okay? This flex is actually really slim in terms of profile, whereas this Makita is really, I don't want to call it fat, but it's wide, okay? It also has aluminum base, so I haven't had any issues with that. I can't imagine most people do. But this flex saw is really long in terms of length, whereas this Makita saw is a lot shorter, okay? And when you put the battery on this, it actually sticks out an additional like 3 or 4 inches right here, right? So keep that in mind. So whereas the battery, it doesn't stick out any much at all because the battery fits in back here on the Makita saw, okay? So what can we really say about both of these saws? I'm going to tell you right now, if I'm cutting anything overhead, I'm definitely going to be using this saw because it's way lighter even with the battery, okay? Whereas this saw, the flex saw, has some places for it to go, right? I mean, if you're cutting in really narrow areas or whatnot, it's probably going to be a good saw to use because, you know, it'll fit right in, right? Whereas if you're cutting in, you know, in between tight spaces, you need to cut like a rip cut or something, and you're kind of butting up against this, may not be the best thing, right? This may be a better idea for that because it will probably fit in those areas depending on how you need to cut and what you need to cut, right? Both of them have dust ports, right? The subcompact one doesn't have a rafter hook, but not too much of a big deal, at least for me. And they both both make good quality tools, right? So what can we say? I use this all the time. I don't think I'm ever going to stop using this just because of its weight and performance factor in terms of like what it can cut and how much you cut overhead. But let's talk about this saw, right? So this saw is Flex, right? Flex is fairly new to market. We don't know how long it's going to be around. I can't imagine it shutting down its operations anytime soon. It uses a 24-volt battery system. Does it have as much tools as everyone else? You know, the full 9 yards of tools or whatnot? Nope. But they're, like I said, they're fairly new. They still have time to establish themselves and, you know, put out more tools and stuff. It uses a 24-volt system, which, you know, is kind of like Cobalt type stuff, right? Because Cobalt also uses 24-volt. And I believe the same company that makes Cobalt makes this. You know, it's also both exclusively sold at Lowe's, right? So that's it, right? I mean, there's not too much really to say. We've already covered most of it. Performs well, has, I think it's got like a niche design, like it's gonna be like a specialty saw. If you're a framer and you're framing all the time, I would not get this saw. I'm just telling you that right now. Mainly because I can tell you just by using it, or even just during the test, this motor heats up so much, I'm surprised it did not thermally cut out like its bigger 7¼ inch brother did. That one actually did thermal cut out. This one didn't thermally cut out, but I could tell even with the gloves on, this thing was extremely hot, okay? I would not use this as a professional framing saw because it will thermally cut out on you before you can get any of the stuff done. Will it cut 3x material in one pass? Sure, why not? I mean, no problem, right? So we'll cut deep stuff. I mean, it's a great saw, right? So I would definitely go with something more of a professional framing type saw, like a rear handle style saw. If you're a professional framer, I do a lot of framing, so that's obviously fun. But anyways, the point is, it's a good tool. It has its space. It's like a niche, not a niche type tool, but it's like a specialty tool that you could use obviously in multiple occasions, right? Would I go ahead and buy this saw? Actually, this is probably a good time to say I did buy this saw, okay? Nobody sent this. This is not a sponsored video. We went ahead and bought this saw, okay? If you buy this saw right now off the Lowe's website, I believe it's right around like $249 or something like that. And it also comes with another 2 amp hour battery or something like that. So for $249 for a 5 amp hour kit and another 2 amp hour battery, that's actually a really good deal, right? Especially if you're not using this saw for complete framing. So, would I go ahead and buy this saw again if I needed it, right? I don't know if I would buy this saw, mainly because I already have this saw, right? I feel like I enjoy using this saw more than this saw. It really depends. If you're cutting on the ground, definitely, or like level on playing field or whatnot. If you're cutting overhead, I guarantee you I'm always going for this, okay? So that's all I can really say. Should you buy the saw? You're gonna go have to figure that out, right? As I tell you in every video, performance numbers and everything are really great, but don't buy tools based on only its performance numbers, unless literally that's the only thing you care about. Then we can have a different type of discussion. Point is that it's a great saw and it has its place. Hopefully it's videos helped you guys out. If it doesn't, let me know. Otherwise, have a great day, and I'll see you guys next time.